Hello, what's up? Welcome back to the channel. And for this setup of the deck tech for March of the Machine Standard, we have these results. It's probably from a local tournament in Japan, and it was posted in MTG Top 8 website. This one is the updated version, probably, of the Esper Raffine deck by T. Takeshi. And we can see here some new cards included, which almost composed of the new composition for the creatures. And we have also the battle here, that's 2 copies, and of course the sideboard setup, which we're going to discuss in a bit. It still has adapted the China lands utilization. As you can see here, we have 28 lands in this build because we have to utilize more of the Itiwara, Iganjo Itiwara, and the Takenuma for how these channel lands would really affect the deck's gameplay as compared previously. Now that we have the March of the Machine set, that we have some new options, new cards to utilize and work around. So we're going to do a quick rundown. There are again 2 battles, 36 creatures, 4 enchantments, 28 lands, and of course 15 sideboard. For the creature choices, again, these are probably basic now. For the first drop, or the 1 drop, is Herald Defector Might. We have 3 copies. Next, for the 2 drop is Denic Pious Apprentice with the playset now is being used, probably because of the utilization in the mid game with the flip version of Pious Apparition that can also be a good flying attacker and has the bonus of creating 2 tokens whenever 1 or more creature cards are put in the graveyards from anywhere. Again, the new cards is Rona, Herald Invasion. This is the tinted glass frame version. This is now 2 cost 1/3 legendary creature human wizard. Whenever you cast a legendary spell, untap Rona, Herald Invasion. Yeah, that is then this ability wherein you can draw a card and discard a card. That's probably looting up to your good cards in the deck. And of course, you have this option to have her transform by paying this 5 black or 5 and 2 life. So what happens here when she's flipped? She becomes Rona, Tolarian Obliterator. It is a 5/5 Trampler per action wizard that whenever a source deals damage to Rona, Tolarian Obliterator, the source controller exiles a card from their hand at random. It's very good ability. That's making sure that your opponent's hand is discarded at least with the exile effect. Then if it's a land card that was exiled, you may put it into your battlefield under your control. Otherwise, you may cast it without paying its mana cost. That's pretty much very brutal for this effect, given that you only have this 1/3 and it begins to transform into a 5/5 Trampler. And when it dealt damage, for example in combat damage steps, you're gonna have this effect to exile this card from your hand and pay out at random with their best cards or their land and play it under your control. So pretty much 2 copies of this. It may look to be very efficient early on, and also in the late game becomes also very proven to be efficient. I mean, very efficient becomes a good mana sink with this 5 transform ability, and also becomes a good threat in the form of 5/5 Trampler. Now for the rest of the 2 drops, we have Atalia, Traben. You can see here the new version. Very good frame for the multiverse in the March of the Machine set. So we are making sure that non-creature spells would really be at disadvantage to your opponents by having these stacks, by making them 1 more mana cost to cast. So 4 copies to bit to make sure that we can also curve out pretty well and have Atalia by turn 2 or turn 3 in our play. And for the 3 drop, we have 2 copies of Adeline again for making sure that you have a good source of creature that can produce, for example, having to attack the opponents will create these 1/1 white creature tokens, tap and also attacking. And of course, the 3 drop is of course the namesake of the deck, Raffine's Scheming Seer, with its ability to do the connive for each number. What is the connive would be equal to the number of attacking creatures. So it works well again with the line and curving out pretty well in this deck setup. Now for the new card, it's also added is Norn. So this is not the new version. We call it this one as just Elish Norn. It's a 4 to cost 3/5 vigilance with his ability that whenever a source and opponent control deals damage to you or opponent you control, that source controller may lose 2 life unless they pay 1. So a good also taxing ability. And then this also has ability to have Elish Norn flip into the Argent Etchings by just paying 3, sacrificing 3 other creatures. So there's this ability that you can incubate 2 for 5 times. That means 5 incubator tokens, and then transforming all into 2/2 Operation Horror. Then the second saga counter, creatures you control gets +1 against double strike and then turn. That's pretty much a good way to end up games because of probably curving out early and have this 2/2 incubated into Phyrexian tokens, becomes +1 and has double strike before they attack. And overage ability, destroy all the permanents except for artifact lands in Phyrexians. So again, this is also sort of the destroy effect. In certain situations, you can have this very relevant way to deal out with your opponent's threats and maybe some other shenanigans such as enchantments, and then have this one exile again to return it to battlefield face up. So it will be returning again as Elish Norn, the usual creature version, as a 3/5 vigilance. So 2 copies in the deck. And for the next 4 drop is Sheldred Apocalypse. Given match, we have 3 copies of this, with the ability of course of having our opponents lose 2 life whenever you draw a card, and the source side to whenever you draw a card you also gain 2 life and utilize the connive ability of that Raffine. Then another version of Sheldred is added here. We just have the name Sheldred for the 5 to cast. So she's a 5 to cast 4/5 menace, and there's a battlefield each opponent sacrifices an token creature or planeswalker. And then this exile effect, the one pay 5 and exile it to turn the battlefield, transform under its own control. Activation only would refer to that of a sorcery speed and only if an opponent has 8 or more cards in the graveyard. So if you flip into it, it becomes the True Scriptures. This is the saga that for each opponent where the first trigger, you have them destroy up to 1 target creature and planeswalker that player controls. And then this ability for the second lore counter, you have your each opponent discard 3 cards and then mill 3 cards. And for the last lore counter, put all creature cards from all graveyards on the battlefield under your control. That's pretty much backbreaking resolution of that lore counter ability. And then you get to exile through scriptures again face up. It becomes Sheldred again in this setup. So that case-to-case value, you get to have this very powerful effect of that Sheldred. Probably in the mid game to the late game, wherein you still have not only a 4/5 menace attacker but also being able to flip into this very efficient saga. So 2 copies of that, making sure that you'll just have another option on your mid to late game. And the only battle for this deck setup, that is the 2 copies of Invasion of Go Backhand. So I'm pretty sure what's where this plane located is, but we have this ability that when it enters the battlefield, look at the target opponent's hand and you may exile an unland card from it, and for as long as that remains exiled, it's all normally play it, but it is now heavier or higher mana cost by 2 for that of its original. So in this certain situations, you get to know your component's hand. You can play out how would be your next steps on this deck, or how you would optimize your creature curve depending on what you would see in your hand. And at the same time, you get to exile their relevant spell, that is the Herald card, by having them 2 more to cast that are on top of their mana value. Now if we're able to defeat this battle, you can get this version. You can have the Lightshed Array, that is an enchantment, a binary end step. Put up them counter on this creature that attack this turn. So a bonus buff on this, and you can have the activated ability to have sacrifice array creatures control gain hex proof and resolvable. So pretty much efficient also on that one, and not only giving you anthem effects on this with the option for that flip battle, but also you have also wedding announcement as another support in creating more of your threats, drawing your cards, and also giving them +1 with the wedding of festivity. Again, with the lands composition, you can just have plainly of this mix of this check lands, the plain lands, and of course the channel lands in the form of Tawara, Yugioh, and Takenuma. So the only slow lands here is probably the 3 copies of Shrouded Sanctum, and 1 copy of Shipwreck Mars. But we also have Plaza of Heroes that can basically add mana many color to cast your legendary creature or legendary spell. Now for the sideboard setup, I can see here it's pretty much basic. We only have 5 kinds of cards. I mean, that's 6 kinds of cards for the sideboard. So a quick rundown. Cut down is probably for aggro, so we have 4 copies of these. Aggro and other sort of mid-range matchups. We also have Destroy Evil for making sure that winning announcements of your opponents and also their Fable, the Mirror Breaker, will also be dealt with early on. We have also the Single Stroke, contains Countering Farewell, some other high mana cost Planeswalkers, and 2 copies of Go for the Throat as an added support in dealing with the non-artifact creatures. And last but not the least, I think, before the last card, we have Loran of the Third Path, a sort of an enchantment artifact removal. At the same time, this is a legendary creature that gets you the option to draw a card if needed for dire situations, and also a good utility creature in the form of this ability with this ETB effect. And last but not the least is 2 copies of Malicious Malfunction. We have some of the aggro matchups that we are making sure that you could be able to deal with. In case that you would not need to curve out early on, you can just have them overcommit and then do the malfunction to have all their creatures get -2, -2 and get exiled. So that's about it. Before we wrap up this one, we can just have a mana curve value. The average mana curve is 2.72 with 2 out of 3 commonly the top cards in the mana cost of the deck. Color distribution is pretty much it. You can see here that we have pretty much more of an Esper in the main 3 colors, but the color distribution of the producers will also have some of the utility lands in the form of Plaza of Heroes, because basically you can produce not only the Esper colors but 1 mana of any color in the setup. And last again, the tokens, we have some 2 tokens that can be produced by Denic Human from Wedding Announcement, and Incubator again as an effect by Elish Norn's Saga ability of the IR Jet Etchings. So I guess that's about it. That's a quick rundown of this deck. It has proven itself as a good update for the Esper Raffine or Esper Legends Raffine Legends setup, with the new addition of these battles and also new cards from March of the Machines, and has finished also first in that local tournament in Japan. So any comments, or have you any experience in facing this deck or using this deck in your MTG or MTG Arena account? Just let me know in the comments below as to how you would fare into having this one played or playing with or playing against, and let us have a good discussion on it. That's about it, guys. That's the Spam Esper Raffine for our standard March of the Machines deck tech, and thank you for checking this one, and see you on the next video.